Okay. It says Google Hangouts is live. I'm gonna refresh the page to make sure that we're live on the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're live. Okay, awesome. Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the wait. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. But we will tonight be having Ed French, special effects makeup artist, who has worked on movies such as Sleepaway Camp, The Stuff, and Chud. Um, Welcome to the show, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Thanks for asking me to come aboard. I'm sorry I can't be here visually.
Of course, no worries. And everybody, yeah, sorry for the wait. So we have Ed on Google Hangouts, but for some reason his camera isn't working on his end. But Ed wants to come back on the show sometime down the road, and hopefully we can get him on camera. But his audio is working fine. I can hear him perfectly. I'm sure everyone in the chat can hear him good too. Um, and everyone that's watching, if you guys have any questions, just let me know and I will ask Ed for you. I see Michael here in the chat. Travis, how's everyone nights going? Let's see. All right, so we got a few people in the chat. Um, Ed, what I want to ask you for one of my first questions was, do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I can briefly mention that I have sort of thrown my hat in the ring to work on the next Star Trek spinoff with Patrick Stewart. It's shooting in LA, unlike the other one that's shooting up in your neck of the woods that I never get to go to and work on, which is an excellent series. But I'm kind of excited about the possibility of working on this. I don't know how much I'll be involved in it. I still continue to do all of the crime, a lot of the crime scenes and the special effects makeups for NCIS, the one with Mark Harmon.
Right.
So those things are happening. Westworld, I still work on, and the Orville. Yeah. So those things are sort of ongoing. Otherwise, I never know what's next.
Okay. Nice. Very cool. And all those projects that you're working on right now, are any of those close to getting wrapped up, or are they still like in pre-production?
Uh, the Star Trek spinoff with Stewart is going to start up in April, and
Hmm.
Marvel is on a hiatus. Westworld's about to come back, and NCIS is ongoing.
Nice, very cool. And you've worked on a lot of different TV shows and movies. How about did you land your role in being a special effects makeup artist in the film industry?
I'm a very lucky guy, Stephen. I was 29 and kind of floundering as an actor in the theater in New York City. And I'd done a lot of crude monster makeups on myself at home when I was very young in the 1960s. I learned a lot from a little Warren one off magazine publication called the Monster Makeup Handbook. And
Nice.
I don't know how many people have heard of that, but it's been around since the 60s. And that was my training manual. And then when I went into theater, I used that. And I think around 1979, I was between acting gigs, and I picked up a copy of Fangoria magazine and began to
Okay.
think. That's when I began to think about doing horror movie makeup.
Right.
Looked like fun, and I wasn't getting any traction in the theater. And they had another magazine. I think it was a sister publication, Starlog Group put it out. It's called Cinemagic. I've
Hmm.
I've saved those issues because they really were building blocks in my career. There was an article about making masks, and I one weekend I went out and bought clay. I didn't even know what sculpting tools were at the time. I used paper clips to sculpt. Yeah, I would sculpt a an Elephant Man mask, or I did a
Oh wow.
Christopher Lee as Count Dracula, and and then I displayed these at Alcone Company, which still exists in New York, Paramount Theatrical Supplies. They sell makeup, and this is the place where I used to buy makeup when I wasn't even in New York. I grew up in New Hampshire, and I went there and I met the people that own the company. They said, "Hey, put your masks in here." Like I said, I'm extremely lucky. Um, I put the masks in there on display in their lobby, and I was just sort of knocking around, really didn't know where to begin as a makeup artist or an effects makeup artist. But John Caglione, who was established, he'd done Saturday Night Live and what is it, Quest for Fire. He saw these masks and he hired me.
Wow.
I'd done no movies. He hired me to do his lab work on a movie called Amityville 2, The Possession, with Stefan Dupuis. And I sort of equate that with almost like a college course. So that launched me. That was the beginning.
Wow. And you mentioned a good point there before too, because before the internet, obviously, everybody in the film industry in the horror genre had Fangoria to look at,
Yeah.
and that's how you got to see what was in the works, what projects, and different special effects, makeup artists, and behind the scenes photos. Um, yeah, that was definitely a big thing in the 80s.
It's a long time ago. No internet. No. I mean, if you wanted a reference on something, you'd have to go to a medical library or something.
Right. It's crazy. And you got to work with a lot of different films. Um, I know the when I messaged you for the interview, you said that you knew the past one of my past guests, Bart Mixon. You're friends with him. Um, are you friends with a lot of the people in the makeup industry, like Greg Nicotero, Tom Savini, Rick Baker?
I know them all. I've spoken with them all. I don't hang with them a lot. There are only a few of them that I sort of hang with. One is Kevin Haney. We seem to hit it off and work together a lot. Bart
Nice.
Mixon, Margaret Becerra. I don't know who's heard of her. Margaret's just a great makeup artist that's been around a long time. Doesn't get much notice. She goes all the way back to The Thing with Rob Bottin.
Oh wow.
Um, what's her name? Jennifer Aspinall is another one. She worked on Saturday Night Live. Uh, I know them. We don't hang a lot. We hang more on sets than
Yeah,
anything.
I was gonna say, have you worked with a lot of them?
Yeah, yeah. I've worked with I worked with Rick briefly on Wolfen. Greg Canham was very instrumental in as far as learning things from. Like I said, I've been very fortunate.
Right.
You may be getting around to that question of again where I started or how my career evolved, but one of the important things was moving away from the low budget horror films and
Right.
getting serious about being a well-rounded journeyman makeup artist.
Right.
And that's when I moved to LA in '89, and like I said, just lucky. Immediately started assisting people or working with people like Greg Canham, Baker. Um, you know,
That's amazing. So, did you go to school at all, or did you just go in by connections and by your work that you've already done previously?
uh, I I would say it's sort of amazing. I mean, I when I was in New York, again, this was a time when this wasn't that well recognized a career that people would aim at or even were aware of. I think it was just really starting to ramp up. So uh, it was amazing the opportunities that I got to do. I worked on the pilot for Tales from the Dark Side before I left New
Right.
York. I was in New York and Sleepaway Camp and uh,
Yeah.
the Larry Cohen film, The Stuff, and Chud, which was, and people on the West Coast that did makeup effects noticed the work. So when I moved to the West Coast, I had a kind of a calling card. So that was helpful.
That's amazing. And yeah, I did want to talk about your work, working on some of the most cult horror films, Sleepaway Camp, The Stuff, and Chud, because those are really popular horror movies in the horror genre of films. How was it working on those films? Any stories from working on set?
Uh, well, one of the things about those days, they really are the old days, was it was kind of exciting because I was learning too. I mean, I love learning new things, and this was part of the excitement of getting into this particular area of makeup and special effects. Was every day was a discovery, and there were a lot of things that were screwed up too.
Right.
Those are the ones you learn from. Uh, But on the whole, uh, I went from success to success. I have I Sleepaway Camp was interesting because that was Robert Hiltzig who directed and more or less produced it. He'd done nothing before, um, and I had just come off of Amityville 2, and that was my what I call my well, I mean, I almost call that like the college course of makeup special effects. I mean, every kind of effect conceivable was in there, bladders and prosthetics and
Right.
demonic monsters and everything. So I was ready to do Sleepaway Camp. Um, but again, I was a beginner, and but my recollections are at times doing special effects makeups on it, like the camp cook who gets scalded to death, spending way too much time applying that makeup and doing the setup for the shot, and the AD blowing his top at me, going, you don't know what you're doing, you're taking too long setting this thing up. But that was a money shot on the film. It was a big deal.
Sure
It was
was.
important. 30 years down the line, no, I wouldn't hold up a production at all. I would know exactly how long it takes to do things. But in those days, those were learner films. Um, I have no idea how now in my memory how or why Larry Cohen would have hired me to do the stuff. Uh, I think his producer on it was aware of my work on Sleepaway Camp. I had no credentials to create the kinds of things that I created for it. I made full scale dummy bodies that were broken open. They were like something out
Wow.
of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. In fact, this was almost like a parody of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I did a fully demon possessed, you'd call it, or stuff possessed dog puppet, which was way beyond my depths. It took me a long time to create it, a little longer than it was scheduled for to create it. And one thing about working with Larry Cohen is that he has big ideas,
Yeah.
wonderful ideas, satirical, almost socially important little narratives. But they call him a guerrilla filmmaker for good reason. He likes to do things his own way and on his own schedule. And he called me up one day and said, "Where's the dog? We want to shoot it tomorrow." And I said, "Hey, the dog, I told you it was, we agreed it would be ready in another week." And I'll never forget, he kind of blew his top at me and he said, um, "I worked with Rick Baker and you're kind of a prima donna, you know?"
Oh, no.
And and I don't know how or why well, I couldn't just sit there and take that. I actually
Right.
opened up my big mouth and I said, "Larry, why didn't you hire Rick?" And I don't understand why I know why he didn't fire me. It's because basically I can't remember how much I earned doing it, but I'm sure it was a pocket change.
Right.
But again, it was another great opportunity.
Sure was.
Built the puppet. I got ill trying to make this thing work.
Oh
Guy named
no.
guy named Mike Maddy, who's doing very well in New York now. He does Gotham and the other shows. He assisted me way back then. He did the mechanics on it. I sculpted the thing and detailed it, which was murder. We made it out
Wow.
of we made it out of Smooth On, which is a urethane rubber, and the mechanics were just dreadful to try to operate. It was like lifting weights. It was misconceived. I mean, it worked well in the film, but operating it was insane.
Sounds really interesting though. And like yeah, as you said before, like these were all great experiences to be a part of
They
and
they
to work on.
they were some of them were extremely challenging because again I was learning.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on out of your all your film industry and all your filming credits?
Undoubtedly, Star Trek Six: The Undiscovered Country. Um, this is another one that just landed in my lap. I was in L.A. I was in the Union. everything just lined up beautifully. I think that a couple of other guys had been assigned to do it. The late Richard Snell, is a wonderful makeup artist. I think he was going to. No, wait a minute. Richard was alive when we did it. Uh, Richard was lined up to do it, but they divided the makeup effects between uh, Richard, myself, and a guy. I think there was somebody else, a guy named Chris Biggs, who did some. But the majority of the effects makeup on Star Trek Six were created by Richard Snell and myself, and.
Wow.
Um, and it was just a thrill to be on the same set with these actors and producers that had done the original TV series. I mean, I grew up in the late 60s watching the original series, never missing it each week. And here I was walking around with these actors on a soundstage at Paramount. And the cherry on the cake was an Oscar nomination for all the makeup work for it. So
That's great. I did actually want to mention that too because you're an Oscar nominee and you've also won an Emmy. Um, I think when you win something like that, that means that you've made it, and that's really impressive. How would you feel that you got nominated and won these awards?
well, it's always better to win. But
It is.
uh, the same year that Star Trek Six was nominated was the same year T2 came out. That's a juggernaut you couldn't beat. Um, so we and ironically, I'd also worked on T2, but
Wow.
the winners that year were Jeff Dawn and the late Stan Winston, well deserving. But just it was kind of incredible that Star Trek Six was nominated because this again was based on an old TV show, and there'd been several other Trek features, but this one garnered the nomination. There's a lot of makeup in it and a lot of good work.
Right. There is a lot of Star Trek movies. That's awesome that you got to be a part of one though. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's on my resume.
That's awesome. Very cool. And out of like all your work in the film industry, has there been a most challenging special effects to apply while filming?
Yeah, did you ever see White Chicks?
Pardon?
Did you ever see White Chicks?
Yes, I have. I love that movie. I've seen it probably over 50 times.
Well, 50 times?
I've seen it a lot. I when that movie came out, I used to watch with my brother and sister all the time. I've seen it a lot, and plus on TV.
Well, let me tell you, I've never seen the movie. I didn't want to see the movie.
It's hilarious.
I've kind of resisted it, and the reason is it was extremely difficult. This was a movie supervised by Greg Canham. He conceived those makeups, and um, I don't know who else who's listening has seen it, but if you've seen it, I don't know if you can conceive of how difficult it was to do those makeups. There was Sean Wayans that Greg Canham turned into a white chick, and I worked on Marlon Wayans with Margaret Becerra. And I'll just tell you, we would start those makeups, tag teaming those makeups at about 3 a.m. And we would do it sometimes every day. We would start 3 a.m. It involved, if they were wearing certain costumes where a lot of their legs and arms were exposed, we would go into a trailer that
Wow.
they used on the X-Men that had a special floor that vacuumed out fumes. This was for doing full body makeup. And we would use these paint guns to paint these guys' skin,
Hmm.
so they looked like Caucasians. And while we were doing it, we were all wearing, masks with air and spraying these guys with the stuff that you'd spray paint cars with. And it would be sucking all of these fumes out, but still, it would be a very oppressive atmosphere. Starting 3 a.m., it looks like you're in this chamber where a serial killer works. And we'd have to do several layers of color on the skin to build up the illusion that this was, pale white flesh of some, attractive woman. This would take maybe 40 minutes to do. Then you'd move out of the weird chamber and we'd go to the makeup trailer and we'd start painting, we'd start applying prosthetics to make them look more like women.
Right.
This would take gluing the stuff down, the appliances, the nose, the foreheads, the faces. This might take another half hour, and then while this is going on, we're also adding like press-on nails to the fingers, and then we have to blend in the coloration of the face. We're using foam latex at this time, and blend that in with the body. This is like an hour and a half's work, okay? And then not only that, but once you get them looking fairly like human beings that are Caucasians and
Hmm.
women, then you have to do beauty makeup over the whole thing.
Wow.
Lashes, lipstick, blush, contouring, fight. It's a big fight to try to make them look like women. And then, then they have to go to hair, then they have to go to wardrobe. It's about a 4.5 hour makeup starting at 3 o'clock in the morning to get them on set by 7:30, 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30 in the morning. And then you never stop retouching them
Wow. That's crazy.
all day long. It's like you've got these, African American guys that are supposed to look like hot chicks. It's like, oh, some of it rubbed off, for God's sake. Get in there, touch it up. It's a close up. Or you have to put cotton gloves on their hands so that nothing comes off, or they rub nothing off.
Right.
You're on your feet all day long, and then you're wrapping like 10 hours later, maybe 12 hours later after that. Very long days. And then the last week that we did it, we had like maybe a 4 hour turnaround before starting all over again. Oh, it took an hour to clean it all off. So,
Wow.
long-winded answer to your question, but there's no question that is the most difficult job I ever did. Again, another valuable experience. A lot of the things I learned on that I've used over the years on other projects where similar things came up, like turning an African American person into a Caucasian,
Right.
or dealing with a fantasy makeup on an African American character.
Hmm.
But no, I have no desire to ever go back and do it again, though.
Wow. I'm surprised you never seen that film. It's hilarious. Like I remember when that film came out, and plus it was always on cable. And time to time, it's on cable too. It's hilarious.
Well, they
I
were
mean,
funny guys. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say, how was it working with the Wayne brothers? Because they're hilarious and like everything they do.
they were funny, and it was fun. It was fun to watch on the set. But I mean, this was 2003. I'm now much older than that.
Right.
I don't know if I'd have the energy to do what that took. You on
That's
your
crazy.
on your feet from 3 a.m. till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. You're
Yeah,
going.
that's a long day. Has that been the longest day of working with applying special effects?
Uh, we had a few days on Star Trek 6 where, if you're familiar with the film, there's a peace conference at Kittimer
Okay.
at the end of the film, and that was shot at a Jewish library up in Simi Valley on location, and we stayed at a motel. The crew did at a motel near there because the turnarounds were so short. That was the equivalent of White Chicks. That was '93. We would start at 2 in the morning to get maybe 50 aliens made up
Wow.
and go till 8 o'clock at night. And then we would wrap and then we'd go back to the motel and immediately drop dead in our beds and get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go back to work and do it again for the week.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's showbiz.
It sure is, and I've heard it's long days. You don't know when it's gonna end. You kind of just play it by ear.
Yeah, I'm not seeking sympathy here. I mean, I enjoy it. Uh,
Right.
People that do it love it. It's great when you're working on a project that you really like.
Exactly.
Like
Like you're passionate about it. You kind of enjoy it more. You wanna do your best.
like Star Trek. Yeah, I like Star Trek, and I've I think I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed that a great deal, and yeah.
That's great. I have some in the chat. I think we answered this question. I just want to make sure. Someone's asking in the chat, what was your favorite movie to work on? You said Star Trek, correct?
I would say Star Trek. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
After that, I worked on it. I work. I like some of the TV commercials I've done. I did one. I did one. I did one for Verizon where I had to make up guys to look like the Three Stooges. That was a
Wow.
terrific amount of fun.
That's
Uh,
really cool.
yeah, I mean, it was like working with the Three Stooges all day. You're working with comedians that obviously idolize the Three Stooges, so they're sitting there being psychoanalyzed by somebody in this commercial, and they're slapping and poking each other, and all day they're doing that, and they're doing that during the commercial. And the, when you're doing a commercial or a TV show, you always have a continuity person. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there's somebody who keeps track of what goes on in every take and reminds the director if it doesn't match.
Okay.
I remember this on this one. It was very amusing. The continuity script person turned to the director and said, "Hey, Mo didn't poke Larry in the eye on the last take when he did that line." And the director just looked at her like, "Just forget it, move on. It's great."
Wow. And you said you worked on a lot of commercials, right?
Yeah.
What has been the longest shoot for a commercial that you've done?
Well, that's a good question.
Because you'd think it wouldn't take too long, but who am I to say? I wouldn't know.
I, you know, uh, a lot of the work has been, you know what, there is a good answer to that question. The longest shoot. Well, again, if you have time for the answer to these questions, there was a shoot that was years ago that was for uh, Tide detergent. You know, makes your laundry fantastic or whatever, and they wanted to do a shot. This was when they were starting to get into computer morphing.
Okay.
And wanted to do this shot where this young man puts on his shirt and he starts walking, and as he starts walking, he ages.
Oh, that's cool.
But the shirt, of course, looks fabulous, right? So they had a motion control track, and we were going to do it outside on this cliff near Pepperdine University, near Malibu, with the ocean in the background and these beautiful
Oh,
trees.
wow.
And the guy would be walking along and the wind blowing, and they had the motion control track that was set up on the lawn. Okay. Well, all that was great, except the day we arrived to do it, started raining,
Oh no, that's
which
awful.
not only not only was the rain not good visually, but also the killer was it was softening up the turf, so the track was moving. So
Oh no.
they were going to shoot this over 3 days. These were going to be 3 long days because we had to take the guy in and out of makeup, and he would walk along, and supposedly this motion control track would track him, and they would morph it. Okay,
Wow.
so we wasted one day. We went in the next day thinking we were going to go to work and do this, and it rained again, and the track was just sinking into this mud.
Oh no.
So the third day, we they decided to shoot this in a studio with a green screen. Okay,
That,
and to
that
make up,
makes more sense.
yeah, but to make up for lost time, they decided to do everything in one day.
Wow.
So we were taking this guy in and out of makeup. I think he was young, and then he was a little older, and then he was older, then he was kind of old age, and I think this was it's about 40 hours. Yeah, we shot for 40 hours. Yeah,
Wow.
that's
That's
what
crazy.
that's what they did. You know, that's the longest shoot ever. Music videos, I've done a few of those, and those can go 24 hours. I did a couple of those.
Hmm.
but that was the longest commercial. Otherwise, commercials are great. They're you get time to prep, and I've done a lot. I've done a lot recently. I've done a lot of these Spectrum commercials with the monsters. Those
Oh,
are
cool.
those are a lot of fun. I don't know if you've seen those. We've got the
Spectrum, you said? What was it called?
It's Spectrum Communications.
Spectrum. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I'll have to see if it's on the internet somewhere.
Yeah, they're on YouTube. There's there's a Mr. Death character, a Reaper character, a mummy, werewolves, and
Wow, that's pretty cool.
it's fun. And they keep bringing them back. We've been doing them off and on for 2 years.
Wow, I'll have to check those out.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen those before.
Well,
I'm gonna
somebody
sure look.
likes them. I guess somebody likes them.
They must. That's pretty cool though to do like monster makeup
It's
for a
fun.
commercial.
It's a lot of fun. The first time actually was challenging because you have to get these makeups approved. You can't just do what you want. And it's funny because you've got monsters in a comical situation. When you see them, I think you'd like them. Uh, the monsters, the only thing I can equate it to is the Munsters, possibly.
I love the monsters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a winner of a concept. This idea that the monsters are in normal situations, but they're monsters. It's
Yeah,
like the mummy is, or the werewolves are moving out of their house and the mummy's helping them. It's funny stuff. But when you are doing this for an ad agency that's they're in charge of approving it, you're testing these makeups and there's a lot on the line for the people that are in the ad agencies and the client. They look at it and they go, "Hey, that's a nice makeup, but a werewolf's kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, the teeth are kind of pointed." It was also a vampire that is kind of based on Nosferatu, and they were going, "Oh, I don't know. His ears, he looks kind of feral, and his teeth are kind of sharp." And then I would turn around and I'd say, well, he's a monster, I mean, it's kind of what it is. And when you see the commercial, it's going to be fine. They're behaving like the old Munsters TV show. Nobody
right.
weird of the Munsters.
That's I need to check those out because yeah, I love the monsters and if it that's pretty cool. The makeup similar to that.
It's
Did
amazing, and it's an old idea, but it still works.
exactly. And when working on films and television, do you have a favorite genre of film that you like working on more than others?
I really like doing Tales from the Dark Side years ago. I like the anthology format. I haven't done it since then. I wish there was more of that on TV. I miss that. Every week a different monster or a different effect. The short story format, um, the anthology.
Right.
Uh, that I like. I also like. And the next best thing would be Mad TV. I did Mad TV with Jennifer Aspinall uh, for a long time.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was just recently the past few days I've been rewatching some Matt TV. I saw Matt TV used to be one of my favorite shows growing up.
Oh yeah.
It was one of those shows that I believe it aired during the day on Comedy Central when I was home, and I always say it was kind of like the daytime version of SNL. Um,
Yeah.
the show was amazing. There's so many good characters. I just recently was rewatching some of Miss Swan's skit because that was one of my favorite characters. What was your experience on working on Mad TV? That was been an amazing experience.
I like parodies and satire. I think that's why despite Larry Cohen's guerrilla tactics, I like the stuff. It's a great parody and a satire of commercialism. But Mad TV, I think was maybe I'm prejudiced, but I thought it was funnier than Saturday Night Live. And some of the parodies that we did the Nutty Professor parody, we did
Hmm.
we did Terminator parodies, the greatest action story ever told, where he goes back and saves Christ, the Terminator. I mean, I love that stuff, and we got to do some really creative makeups, and you work fast. you see everything come together quickly. It's fun, and also you also get the rare experience of they would film a lot of the things from Ad TV, but also um, we would do certain days in front of a live audience.
That's
So,
really cool.
a lot of the makeup was whipped out there very quickly, and you got to see how people reacted to it. Very.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true because you have a live audience, you get to see the reaction.
I like that. It's sort of an anthology in a way.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, were you saying that as far as like genre of film, is comedy some of your favorites to work on?
I think I've enjoyed. I think you can enjoy that more in a movie on a set. Comedy. Um, it's a looser feeling thing. Uh, Again, like I mentioned earlier, I did Star Trek 6, and I also worked on T2, which is one of the
All right.
greatest sequels ever made, but incredibly ponderous ponderous and time consuming to shoot, which is very well it should be.
Yeah.
uh, Very elaborate movie. So in a way, I like the energy of the short format. The parodies and the satire and the looseness of the comedy.
All right.
Maybe I prefer that. But I love science fiction and I love horror. But it's a very serious set.
Yeah, I could imagine that. I could compare like yeah, there's just a totally different feel most likely when you're on this set. It's totally a different vibe and
That's
different.
probably why I never got on one thing for any long stretch of time. I like working in different genres.
Yeah,
The last full length movie that I worked on was American Sniper.
nice. That
That's
was a good film.
Yeah, I was on that from start to finish. I actually like that because Clint Eastwood worked so quickly. There was not much sitting around. The days weren't staggeringly long. We
Did
worked.
you get to like now when you're on set, like do you typically meet the director or is it kind of just depending what day you work? Like, cause I would say Clint Eastwood, that would be amazing to meet him.
Well, Clint Eastwood is very personable and very approachable and really totally unpretentious. You'd walk on a set and he would acknowledge you're there. He'd say hello, good morning, whatever.
That's really cool. That's
If
awesome.
you could talk to him and ask questions about what was needed in a scene, and he would tell you exactly what to do, which I love that.
That's
A
great.
lot of directors hope that you'll tell them what to do.
That's true. And, considering his age, he just came out with a new film too. I don't remember what it's called, but I might have to look it up here. But you have Clint Eastwood too. He's like he's an older guy, but he's still making great films to this day, and it's awesome how he still works in this industry. Yeah, it was called the Mule. That one
The
just came
mule.
out last year. But yeah,
I don't,
that's really awesome that you got to work with him.
no, I don't think I ever saw him sit down. I don't think he sits down ever.
Wow, good for him. Um, and do you prefer working on television or films? Where I don't remember if I asked that one. That kind of intertwined with the other one.
It's a tricky question because if I say I prefer one over the other, I may be eliminating some employment opportunities. I, I like to work.
Yeah,
I don't work every day. I freelance, so I don't work every day. I mean, this week has been a slow week. I worked yesterday on a show I never even heard of that was coming to the end of its season called Zeus.
oh no,
I'm not even sure totally what it's about, but we were doing a simulation of a computer game with some mutant zombies running around, and a guy named Jason Collins, who I've worked with, who has a shop called Autonomous Effects, brought me in to help apply the makeups,
oh wow,
and that was my day. Yeah.
very cool, awesome. And for people that want to get into this field of film, is there what kind of advice would you give someone that wants to get in this area of work?
Well, I would say that you should have no doubt that this is what you want to do and pursue it. Um, There's so many avenues and ways to get into it. Schools aren't necessarily the way, but there are some fine schools. I think we have something called the Makeup Designery in Burbank, which is an excellent school. Um, there's there's a magazine called Prosthetic Magazine. If you're interested in pursuing this as a career, that's just a fantastic how-to magazine for prosthetics and so forth. But I would say the answer to your question is the answer to the old question: how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Remember that one? You know the answer to that question. How do you get to
No.
Carnegie Hall? Practice. You know,
Yeah,
practice.
that's
Take
very true. And
go to
there's a lot of great online courses that you can take for this.
yeah, they're great. But I do. I'm in Local 706, the makeup union in Hollywood, and when I got into Local 706, you were expected to take a test, and on that test you would do bald caps, you would create beards by laying hair on somebody's face, beauty makeup, trauma makeup, some sort of stylized makeup, maybe a race makeup or a clown makeup, but you were thoroughly tested. The test no longer exists. You can get in the union by having keeping a record of having worked on a film and keeping your pay stubs and showing that you worked on, say, a, a film, a non-union film for I don't know how many days now you're supposed to be able to use to get in the union, but it might be 60 or 90. I don't know what it is exactly, but
Okay.
you can get in. But you don't have to take a test anymore, which is a curious thing. But we still do demos for the people that are eligible to go in the union. We will do a demo and we will do a class where someone like myself will demo a makeup such as a bald cap or a beard, and then the people will bring in models and practice doing the makeup. We don't mark them in any way. We simply are under contract to demonstrate what level of proficiency you should have. Um, I would say that a lot of people that are starting out in the business that I've found over the last 20 years have started experimenting doing character makeup or prosthetic makeup as early as high school, and they take photos,
Yeah.
and there's some amazing talent that could definitely go a long way. You have to really love it though to succeed. It's very competitive, but I would
Yeah.
I would I would encourage anyone that's interested in it to give it a shot. If you really love it, do it. It's fabulous that when you consider the culture that we live in and the crazy things that people do, this is actually a relatively sane thing to pursue, I think. I mean, it's creative and it's fabulous. But I would say, though, if you're serious about doing makeup as a career, go light on posting the pictures of the gory stuff. It's great. Do a
Hmm.
gory makeup. But if you want to be employed in the industry, demonstrate that you can do all kinds of things that a script demands: beauty, uh, hair work, trauma makeup, um, anything imaginative, monsters. Um, but be in the beginning, but copy the good stuff.
Yes.
That's what beginners do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it can show a prospective employer what you're capable of doing.
Hmm. Sure is. And now with the newer generation, we have technology, we have social media, and it feels like most time we have new people that are doing this kind of stuff post all their work online, which is great because that's how you get noticed.
Yeah, no, I when I started, I would have to make postcards and print out pictures and distribute them to get noticed, and you could get noticed easily.
Hmm.
There were fewer people doing it. I remember when I started doing it immediately. Picked magazine like Fangoria was looking for things to print, and so I received exposure that way. There's so much now. It's great. I mean, you can create a portfolio online. You can create a website. It's fabulous. But how do you stick out from the crowd? Well, if you want to be a movie makeup artist, it's showing a variety of skills. If you want to primarily be a beauty makeup artist, maybe you want to do print work. New York's a great place to do that sort of thing.
Sure is. Yeah, it's all about doing different types of work and um, not just doing one thing of special effects, like doing multiple different type of special effects.
Yeah, there are some people who have made a career of doing just horror movies. Vincent Guastini is an example. He loves that genre, and he has made a complete career doing it, and successfully too. So it's possible for somebody else to do that. Um,
Yeah,
what's his name? Guillermo del Toro. Ah,
Guillermo del Toro. Yes, he's amazing.
he's another one. He's made a total career out of it. He started as a special effects makeup artist.
Oh wow,
Well, yeah, no, he took the Dick Smith makeup course.
I actually did not know that. I thought he was just a writer and director.
Here you go. Well, he was a special effects makeup artist,
That's
and
really cool.
just imagine. I mean, this guy started out in Mexico,
Yes.
and then he was determined to become good at special effects makeup. He started making little movies, and extremely talented, imaginative man. He just kept climbing away, into what he is now. So,
Yeah.
that's the other thing about doing anything in life. I think you may start out thinking you're going to be a special effects makeup artist. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you will get a break somewhere else. Uh,
Yeah.
I
Just like
love
climb the
special.
ladder.
Yeah, no, I mean I love special effects makeup, but I started out interested in acting, and this was my means of, you know, staying connected to what I love. Which I grew up watching Star Trek, watching horror movies on late night TV, and when this avenue opened, I grabbed it and ran with it for all it was worth.
Right. Yeah. We're talking about Guillermo del Toro just now. Did you go to his museum that he had open, his exhibition?
I haven't. I read all about it.
It's
I
really
didn't.
cool.
It sounded great.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was I don't know if they're doing any of them this year, but it was here I believe it was last year or a couple years ago. It was in Toronto. And yeah, no, it's amazing. If
He's
it's
he's
ever in
such a.
your area, go.
I mean, he's a fan, but he's so literate and a great spokesman for our favorite genre.
It really is. Yeah. Do you have any favorite directors or writers or any like favorite films of yours?
Well, Citizen Kane comes immediately to mind. I love Orson Welles, and Kane is, if I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen Citizen Kane?
Citizen Kane. I'm gonna
Yeah,
look it up.
1940. A kind of a milestone in cinema. Orson Welles came from the theater, and he was a huge success in theater, but he became a notoriously famous person after he recreated H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds as a radio broadcast, and it sounded like a real Martian invasion going on. So he became incredibly famous for that, and then he was invited to Hollywood to make a movie, and he decided to make a kind of a notorious movie, and it was based on a very wealthy man, William Randolph Hearst, who was kind of a scandalous character in American politics and history and yet
Right.
in journalism. But the movie it's much more incredible than what I'm making it sound like. It's also a an amazing looking movie, and it's kind of almost a horror movie, really.
Oh,
Um, it's a very dark movie, but it has all kinds of movie techniques and theatrical techniques that are fascinating to watch. They still look like state of the art. There's a lot of makeup in it, a lot of people age during it, and a lot of special effects. So, yeah, that had a great influence on me, and I love Orson Welles, like I say.
Awesome. I'm just actually looking up now. I haven't seen that one. I don't recognize it, but I do try to watch a lot of the older movies. Like, I mean, like I've seen most of. I think I've probably seen. I've seen all the original Universal monster movies. I might have not seen all of like the sequels to some of them, but Universal monsters. You know, I grew up off like Abbott Costello and like Frankenstein,
Yeah.
and those are some of my favorites, and they're great.
Well, me too. Except when I was growing up, you never knew when they were going to be on TV. I'd have to stay up until like 11:30 at night on Friday or Saturday
Yeah.
and wait patiently to see if I was going to see that Universal Pictures logo with the spinning globe and the stars. If I saw that, I went, "Hey, maybe it's going to be the Wolfman tonight," you know. Uh, and you know, I saw most of them that way. A few of them I fell asleep during. It got kind of early in the morning when they were in.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because my parents grew up at the same time you're growing up, and they always tell me that when they were growing up, they would have to wait like once a year for Wizard of Oz to come on, or like once a year for Cinderella to go on TV, or something like that. It's just funny how back then, how television worked compared to now. You have like everything to the like everything in front of you. Just watch it.
It was an event when the Wizard of Oz came on. It was a great event when there was a special like that. Yeah, the whole neighborhood would stop and watch it. My parents had one of the first color TVs in the neighborhood, and we would watch the Wizard of Oz and have
Wow.
want to come over and watch it with us. And then I'd go to the bus stop to go to school in the morning, and they'd say, "Well, what was the color of the horse of a different color?" You know.
Wow, very cool. And one of my last questions here I had for you because you have a YouTube channel that I want to give a shout out to, and if everyone that's watching, Edward's YouTube channel is just Edward French, and Edward, you do a lot of narrations, different stories. Um, I want to talk about that a little bit. How long ago did you start doing this, and was it just like a hobby that just kind of is it something that you always wanted to do? Was YouTube?
It's interesting. I started out in radio years ago, and it really wasn't a good fit for me. I just got out of high school, and I had an aptitude for doing radio. This was 1971. I was 19, and I was the
Wow.
morning man on a radio station in Haverhill, Massachusetts. You'd think that would be a great break for somebody, you know, but I was never quite happy with the fit of it.
Okay.
It's not what I set out to do, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But it wasn't radio, so that's I um, kind of opted out of it. I think the thing that I loved was old radio, but that time had gone. The golden age of radio was over by the time I was
Right.
going into radio, and I was on AM radio, which nobody's heard of anymore. Pretty, pretty dead.
AM, it feels like AM's like for sports now.
Yeah, is that what it?
Well, yeah, my dad, he when he's in the car, he's listening to the radio and it's always sports, it's always on AM. FM I think is more for like music. And then AM's for like just people talking.
Yeah. Well, I, I let's see, how do I segue into this? Anyway, I got interested. It just I was always interested in storytelling, and I think that's essentially what I do,
Right.
and that's what acting was for me. It was playing a character. I I I, uh, I find that interesting, and I'm amazed at what actors can do. And I kind of lost track of that. I also love literature. I love fantasy, horror, sci-fi literature. And about 7 years ago, I found out again, I'm a technophobe, as you know. We had our problems today with the visual thing, but I I was determined when I found out that you could download software, get a microphone, didn't cost a lot of money, and
Right.
you could create a show. You could put on your own little show, and have all of the power of your own talents and abilities that you pour into it, And you know, at the end of the day, you look at it, and that's something you created. And so that was the birth of the what I call the Fiction Fantastique channel. And
Awesome.
I started working on it and recording these stories, and I think I've gotten better at it, and I'm still working at it. And a lot of the stories that I like are vintage horror, pulp
Yes.
fiction, ghost stories, um, and some of it's comedy, some of it's gory, and some of it's kind of fantastic. And I get a lot of satisfaction doing it. Um, you
It's
know, it's
great.
storytelling. I mean, it's the essence of all artistry, whether it's the written word or a painting, a magic trick, music, or movies. It's all storytelling, and that's
It is.
what we do as artists. And uh,
Mm-hmm.
I gain a lot of insights into the text. Also, when I create these things, apparently a lot of people have listened and enjoyed the results, and that's very gratifying.
Yeah, and you're close to 4,000 subscribers, and I have listened to a couple of them, and you do. I think I listened to the two recent ones that you've done. I listened to Dead Call,
Yeah.
and I think it was the one he posted 3 days ago, The Face.
Yeah, yeah. So Dead Call is definitely old time radio influenced, uh,
Yeah.
and the Face. You know, I like to change it up. I mean, the Face is a period piece from 1923. Not necessarily super scary, but very atmospheric and kind of interesting. I mean, every story that I post um, is I've tried. I have a few authors I've recorded a few times, but I'm trying to do a different author every week, and I think
Okay, that's cool.
interesting. You know, I hope it's interesting, but again, as I say, I don't want to say I don't care about people. I mean, I want people to listen. I love hearing that they enjoy it, but I feel as though again, this is another passion that I put on hold, and again, as an artist, it's important that you pursue the things. You never know where they'll lead.
It is, and you do a really good job. Like when you narrate it, it's so clear, and it you could probably sell an audiobook. You
Well,
should try. That'd be
I've
cool.
done a few that are on Audible, but again, it's hard to mix my real career with this.
Right. So it's more like a hobby, right?
It's a little more than a hobby in the sense that I try to do a professional job, but yeah, it's still kind of a hobby. Um, yeah.
Very cool. And everybody that's watching, all the links are below. Ed's website, his Instagram, his YouTube, and his IMDb are the links below. So if you want to check out his website, go give him a follow on Instagram and subscribe to his YouTube channel. All the links are below. Um, before we close off here, we're just talking about you doing your YouTube channel. Do you have any other interests and hobbies that you like to do outside the film industry?
I still do little sculptures when I have time. I do little likenesses of family members, and I've done some life casts of my grandchildren's
Oh,
feet and
very.
hands, and I also did a full size military intelligence memorial sculpture for Fort Bragg in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was my son's idea. It was a sphinx that's like 6 feet long and 4 feet high that's sitting outside of military intelligence at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That was a big project. Uh, yeah, that was an unusual thing. So again, I don't like to let any of these talents dry up. You know.
That's true. It's good for you, though. I mean, you keep doing it, and you don't let go of these other opportunities that you can do on your spare time.
Yeah, when you think of it, the Sphinx is another monster, really.
Let's see. I'm gonna still look at the chat quickly, see if anything's new. Before we end up the interview, Ed, could I have you do a plug for the show?
For the Fiction Fantastique channel or your show.
Oh, for
Your
my
show.
show.
Your
Yeah.
show. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I've done my plug already. What am I saying? Uh, well,
um,
speaking as one of the older geeks that's been on Geek Out Cinema here, I've enjoyed this conversation very much, Stephen. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me on.
Of course.
Keep up the good work, and let's do this again when we can do this visually too.
Yes, I really appreciate it, and it's such a pleasure talking to you and getting having you on the show. And yeah, we will totally do this down the road. Like, just let me know, and we'll figure out. Hopefully, Google Hangouts is working next time properly, because the first time we tested it was perfect. Just probably just today, little technical difficulties. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate being on. It's been really fun. But
I hope.
for my plug, could you just state your name and say you're listening to Chit Chat and Geek Out on Geek Out Cinema?
All right. This is Ed French. I'm not sure I heard the rest of it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no worries. Just state your name and then say you're listening to Chit Chat and Geek Out on Geek Out Cinema.
This is Ed French, and you're listening to Chit Chat. I'm having trouble
It's
remembering
okay.
this.
Chit Chat and Geek Out on Geek Out Cinema.
You're listening to Chit Chat and Geek Out on Geek Out Cinema. This is Ed French. Listen to Stephen.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody tonight for watching. Hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. And yeah, thanks again, Ed. It's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you better, talking about your work in the film industry. And we'll definitely do this again down the road. I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to be on.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
Of
Have a good
course. Yep. You too. Have a good night. Keep in touch. Talk to you
I will.
soon. Hope everyone has a good night in the chat. See you all soon. Bye now.